Greg Abbott, who pretty much all the time loves to brag about the fact that he takes migrants, shoves them into buses, and just drops them around the country like they're garbage, now has a problem with Kamala Harris and migrants and buses. Get a load of this. So he was talking to a crowd of about 50 people at a wedding venue in a Phoenix suburb. And he said this: when you saw 5,000 people a day crossing into a town like Eagle Pass, Texas, you could see that was on your TV. You knew what was going on in America. What Harris wanted to do was to silence the critics, and they could silence the critics by making this problem go invisible. They're doing that daily, flying people across the border or through this asylum application program, getting them to come to a port of entry, at which time they will put them on a bus and then transport them to some other place. So what's he referring to? So back in 2022, NBC News got a plan, an internal document from DHS to transport migrants awaiting immigration proceedings from US cities along the border into the interior of the country. And so the idea is, rather than just leaving them in the border states, we're gonna take them into the rest of the country or whatever. And he hates that. He's telling a wedding party, how dare they do that? How dare they bust these migrants? And I know what you're thinking, because I was thinking the same thing. This dude loves busing migrants. Isn't that kind of his whole thing? Well, he went right back to doing that, by the way, recalling the steps that he took when Texas began busing migrants back in that same year, 2022. He boasted that the program began busing them to Washington, D.C., and then dropping them off at the address of the residence of the Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris, who again was not in control of this program or whatever. They're just pretending that everything Biden did is her because they want to win an election.
A storm is tearing up the digital media industry. Only our audience can save us in these difficult times. Help us reach our goal of 100,000 new members at tyt.com/team.
And he spent $140 million busing migrants around the country. So let's be very clear about what's going on here. So if you do not assume that the busing migrants program that he and Ron DeSantis did was a political stunt, because he fundamentally doesn't think that these migrants are humans. He thinks that they're political pawns. So he shoves them into buses and he drops them off places like filth. If you don't assume that and you take his actual word on it, do you remember why they started doing that? They started doing that because the Biden administration is allowing an invasion of the country, and all these migrants are coming in, and we have to deal with it. In New York, they don't have to deal with it. In DC, they don't have to deal with it. We have to deal with it. They just stay here in these border states, and we have to pay for it. No longer. I'm gonna put them on planes, and I'm gonna put them on buses, and I'm gonna send them into the interior of the country so these Democrat mayors and governors can see what it's really like. So they're making that criticism, and they start doing their political stunts. And so apparently the Biden administration in response says, you know what? That's a good point. It shouldn't all be on the border states. We're gonna pay to bring them in and put them in other places too, so it's not all on you. So Greg Abbott goes from that being the justification for his stunts to now being, that's unacceptable because that's hiding the problem. I literally said, don't leave them here, but now that you're not, I'm gonna whine and complain about that. Do you see how they get it either way? The victimhood complex is immune to changing circumstances. It perseveres, it adapts almost instantly to whatever happens. And it's a reminder to the Biden administration, other Democrats, there's no point in trying to help these people because they don't want to be helped. They want to posture, they want to do stunts. They're not actually about solving problems. And by the way, we won't have a lot of time for it. So let me just mention, in Texas, by the way, Greg Abbott is not the extent of the problems. Ken Paxton, the AG, is also now suing to try to stop county leaders in San Antonio from sending out 200,000 voter registration applicants to unregistered voters in Bexar County. They think it's unacceptable that you would register people to vote in their state. He doesn't want it to happen. They're doing this in Michigan as well. I don't need to explain to you why they want as few people to vote as possible. I just think it's amazing that they remind us constantly. They know that if people are involved in this process, there's no way they can win. And so they will do anything legally to try to stop that, even changing the law. Members make a difference here at TYT. You help make the show happen, and we see you in the chat with your loyalty badge. Click the join button to become a member today.